Welcome to Reddit Aliens. What is the most terrifying thing you have ever seen or heard in the great outdoors? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Was backwoods canoeing for a couple of weeks in the middle of BFE, Manitoba. Had to use a float plane backwoods. Didn't see another soul besides my crew the entire time. One night we pull up to an island in the middle of a lake, set up our camp and get to cooking. I got up to go take a piss and bam, there's a giant headstone less than 10 feet from my tent. Hell of a place to be buried, man. Rest in peace, Big Al. Something neither seen nor heard, just a feeling of being watched while alone in the silence of the deep woods. I was outside during a very unusual earthquake in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. I was standing on a bridge with my little siblings and the ground looked like it was moving, like water. I thought I was just really sick or something, so I went inside and told my mom I don't feel well, but she was already yelling at us to come inside because she felt the tremors. As a land surveyor, I've come across some really strange things. I spotted a severed moose foot wedged in a branch 8 or 10 feet up a tree. One of the scariest moments I had while surveying alone, I found a coffin-shaped white cardboard box, 3 feet by 2 feet, wrapped in medical tape with a black heart Sharpie on the top, left in the snow below a rural bridge. I kicked it and my heart sank when I realized there was a body inside. I was terrified that it would be a human child or something, but I opened it immediately anyways. It was a euthanized pit bull. One time, I brought my girlfriend to a camp in a special secret spot on a cliff with a view. Below the spot, we camped as a famous rock climbing area with a parking lot and trailhead. In the middle of the night, there was suddenly yelling and running in the woods just below us, followed by gunshots that very well could have been in our direction. Never figured out what that was all about. Running into bear cubs just off the trail and startling them so they run off screaming is terrifying because for a moment, you don't know if the mom is up ahead of them or you are standing directly in between. These were black bears, but still. There's a trail I frequently hike where some freaky stuff clearly happens in the middle of the night. I found women's underwear on the trail in the morning several times. One time, just off the trail, someone has made a 10-foot circle out of chunks of moss, and in the circle there was a candle and a fetish collar chained to a tree with a pile of broken glass next to it. Okay. My friend and I actually found it quite amusing. After graduating from high school, a friend, Mark, and I drove to Nova Scotia from Philly to meet another friend and his girlfriend at his parents' cabin. The friend I drove up with happened to be an all-American wrestler. The first evening we were there, we all decided to go for a hike through the woods to the coast. At some point, Mark and I got separated from the main group, along with our host's younger brother Dan, 10 or so. Our phones aren't working. It starts getting dark. Dan doesn't know the way back and is starting to get freaked out. We stop and seriously, focus all of our collective education into figuring out how to get back to the road because it is now dark and there are bears. But my friend and I don't say it out loud because there's a kid with us. We just know this is starting to get a bit urgent and we need to get back to the road and find our friends. Eventually, we managed to find the coast and I was able to see a small house way down the coast that I knew was on the road, so we could sort of at least surmise what direction the road was in and angled towards it while trying to hug the coast because we could see. Again, we have not mentioned bears once out loud, but they are on my and my friend's mind constantly. When we went out for a walk, we were warned. When we went into the woods, we were warned. The fact that we got separated at dark, unprepared, was the exact situation we were all trying to effing avoid. So, we were across a small marsh from some forest and then presumably the road, and we pause at the edge and sort of look around and take things in before crossing, when we hear a bunch of rustling and crunching coming from the tree line behind us. We sort of freeze and then duck behind some marsh grass, and as we're laying there totally quiet, Dan goes, "Mark, please don't let it get me. You can wrestle a bear, right?" And he does that childlike high-pitched whine at the end, and we're trying to calm him down before he starts sobbing and shrieking, and then the crashing starts again. We see flashlights, and it's our effing friends. I effing puked. I stood up, exhaled, and effing puked. TLDR. 2 city kids and 1 10-year-old are all 10 years old in the woods. My friend Scotty suddenly dropping his pants and taking a massive liquid dump right next to our campfire after an unexpected episode of diarrhea. 6 adult men had to move our entire camp 100 meters in the middle of the night while drunk and not making eye contact. A lot of spooky shit happens in the Australian bush, but that one still causes flashbacks. Long time ago, around 14 to 15, rebellious phase, my friend and I would sneak out of my house and meet up with some friends on the train tracks and smoke some weed. The train never really came, maybe twice a day, and you could tell. You'd hear the horn, the tracks, all of that. So, it was around 2 to 3 a.m., and we heard the horn of the train. It wasn't uncommon for the train to come at this time, so we didn't think much and moved around 10 feet away from the tracks and continued hanging out and smoking. We all heard the horn. It was extremely loud, and this was the only rail in the whole town. It didn't split off or anything. It was a straight shot. We lost track of time, and then noticed the train never came. This wasn't normal at all, and we knew we weren't just tweaking because we all heard it. It kept getting louder and louder, and it still never came. Soon after that, my friend lost her phone on the tracks, and while we were looking for it, we started hearing screaming from down the tracks, really loud, bloody murder screams. We all got freaked out, and after we found her phone, we left right away. To this day, we don't know what happened, if someone had gotten hit or something or anything. Our town isn't one to put those type of things on the news either, because they want us to look low crime. Many years later, I still think about this and what happened. In England, where the largest predator is a badger, I was walking my dog in a country park. We were walking downhill with a hedge on the right-hand side, and for a number of yards, something kept pacing us, growling. I couldn't see what it was because of the hedge, and my dog bolted in terror. I just kept steadily walking and didn't try to look to see what it was, because I didn't know what else to do. It moved off as I got to the bottom of the hill, and I still think about it years later. I wish I knew what it was. Walking late at night in a dark sky park in rural Midwest, my girlfriend and I heard what sounded like a woman's high-pitched panic scream. We turned around and got off of that trail pretty fast. Once we were done panicking, we realized it was probably just a coyote. Chased by a bear. Played dead. It sniffed me a lot and left. I got up and ran. It was about 30 yards away. Came back and I shot it dead. Scariest moment of my life. Camping in the California mountains with my family, I went hiking with my 5-year-old and 3-year-old. I heard the growl of a mountain lion nearby. It scared the crap out of me. I picked them up and hurried back to camp. Nothing happened, but I did double check my underwear. Pack of coyote pups snarling and yelping. Feeding time, I assumed. Most terrifying, then coolest once realized what I was hearing. This was just this last November. I was hunting and a giant buck in rut came up behind me and just sat there, heavy breathing because, you know, buck in rut equals horny beast buck. He was about 3 feet behind me, and I'm sitting there trying not to move as this thing is standing there, practically breathing on my neck. It's like 1 a.m. Me and my friends walk deep into a tall grass field or forest near one of those electrical towers to smoke gas, and out of nowhere, we hear like 20 wolves howling louder by the second. Shit sounded like the classic vampire movie howls. Stopped all conversation and started booking LMFAO. I was on a plane once and we hit some turbulence. The plane shook and the lights were flickering. Then the lights went out for a few seconds and the young girl in front of me, probably 3 or 4, started calmly singing, "The London Bridge is falling down," and I was convinced the plane was crashing, just like in the woods. A couple of illegals. I was filling feedings one day and turned around to 2 guys walking up on me, 4,000-acre ranch, about 25 miles from any towns. We usually all stay out of each other's way, as in landowners, illegals, smugglers, so it freaked me out. They were asking for water. They looked bad health-wise. They had to be in bad shape to take the chance of flagging me down. They sat in the shade, drinking water for about an hour, and then I sent them on their way. Pretty shady feeling to have guys approach you like that. I'd consider myself an outdoorsman, seen it all, done it all. Scariest thing I saw was like 10 or 11 at night. In the woods, it gets super dark. I realized I forgot to close the cargo trailer, so I grabbed my trusty mag light, put my knife on my belt, and went out. I looked to the tree-lined perimeter of the grounds, and as I did, I shined my flashlight, and directly in the middle of the light was a large, dark figure. I don't know if it was a Wendigo or Bigfoot, but it was moving at a quick pace around the tree line. Needless to say, I closed that trailer up, pissed, and went back into the tent at lightning speed. Not really the outdoors, but as I was leaving the supermarket, I drove past a couple standing behind their car door pissing in the parking lot near a Hallmark. It was terrifying. My dad and I were hunting deer along an old dirt logging road that looked back in on itself after about a 3-mile stretch. The first was loose and formed perfect footprints as you walked. We walked along, and about 3 hours later, we were back at our starting point. Then I looked at my footprints, in each one a large mountain lion paw print. We'd noped the F out of there real quick. My dad owns a cabin in the county, and it's right next to a lake. I take my 2 dogs for a walk around the lake. It was getting dark, so I decided to go back to the cabin. All of a sudden, everything goes dead quiet, and a horrible smell looms over me. My dog's hairs are up, and then I heard my name like low-pitched voice. I ran so fast, and my dogs followed suit. I looked back, and there was this huge white creature looking directly, making eye contact. I don't know what it was, but it scared me half to death. During camp in year 6, I was quite a pussy, so it's self-explanatory in some way. On the first night, we had a night walk with the whole year level, and we walked onto the top of a hill. Once everyone quieted down, the camping instructor told everyone a story. Mind that it was probably 11 in the night, about this piano at the camp, which was supposedly used by the older campers because this camp was older than my mother, and I was already spooked out. Supposedly, the piano would play by itself once every now and then, so you would hear random piano keys being played at like midnight apparently. A lot of kids covered their ears. I never understood the story, and so on the final night of camp it was 12 a.m. and the female staff faculty gathered all us girls to the center of the site, and we were confused on what was happening. Suddenly, the piano started playing and everyone was screaming. I started crying while this one kid was effing traumatized. She was so frightened she might have pissed herself. The teachers were laughing so hard, and it was apparently some other teacher playing it, but I doubted it since she was coming out from a different area from the piano. I'll never know whether the haunted piano is really haunted or not. Probably not. Playing hide and seek at night with a friend. 3 of us. One goes inside after being found, so it's me and the seeker. I'm behind the neighbor's house. All of a sudden, loud bang, loud, sounded like gunshots. Seeker gets scared, begins to call me, but we continue. Second big bang, I say F it, and call for her. She finds me, and we go inside. I won the game since she forfeit on the first bang, but still continued to play. P.S. Cops were going by earlier.